It's time for this week's episode of Brandon Sports Talk, featuring in-depth interviews from those who are trending in the world of athletics. And now, here's the host of Brandon Sports Talk, Brandon Pate.
Welcome back to Brandon Sports Talk. In today's episode, I have the privilege of interviewing the Cape Fear Community College head women's soccer coach, Coach CW Ponton. How are you doing today?
Doing good. Glad to be on.
Thank you. Can you talk about how you knew that you wanted to get started in coaching in college women's soccer?
So I knew that I wanted to start coaching in college when I met the head women's coach when I was in class, actually, at Liberty University. And I started picking his brain, and I worked my way in through starting off in high school and then just reaching out to the local colleges and found out that Lynchburg needed a goalkeeper coach. And I had already been working with goalkeepers and done some goalkeeper certification courses.
How was that experience getting into the college ranks and becoming a coach?
It's very trying. It's not an easy thing to get into. I get asked all the time, how do you get into coaching college? A lot of the times it comes down to giving your time for free and then learning how time consuming it can be compared to coaching, say, club or high school.
What was that experience like for you going to Lynchburg and becoming the goalkeeper coach there?
It was an amazing experience to be able to learn under such an experienced head coach and Todd Olson and the experienced staff from recent former players of his as GAs and another assistant as well. We had a great coaching staff and really balanced our jobs and worked very well together, which was able to essentially help us win that national championship. But working under Coach Olson and implementing my goalkeeper knowledge, and he allowed me to have full access and reins to recruiting goalkeepers, training our current goalkeepers, and anything and everything to do with the goalkeepers was completely up to me. So it was nice for him to have that confidence to put that into me as a first year college coach. But also, if he would send me on recruiting trips to go, I would go with them. And then I kind of got my feet wet as an assistant coach recruiting, then he would send me on my own or by myself to go to certain recruiting trips too, all the things that would help benefit me later on down the road. So super appreciative to Coach Todd Olson and for him to bring me on. I still hit him up every now and then when I have questions or just to say hi because he completely changed my life in bringing me on that staff.
While at Lynchburg, what was that experience like as a coach getting to compete for the national championship?
At the time, I didn't realize that we were really making that kind of push, and I don't think the players did either. We were really just taking it game by game. And then, as the regular season started to wrap, we're like, there's like a possibility of this, but no one would really talk about it much. We just started to get that feeling, and we just kept rolling and rolling, and literally didn't lose a single game or tie a single game the entire season. I know the NCAA counts the one tie that we had in the Elite Eight because it went to kicks from the spot, but we still moved on, and so we actually like didn't tie or lose any games, and just to keep going and going. And my goalkeeper, she didn't allow but 5 goals in on the entire 28 games in the season. That's like unheard of. And so it was just like all the pieces fell together and all the amazing like work that had been done prior, and for them to bring in such a good recruiting class and then me just to come and dedicate my time to the goalkeepers. I think for all the coaches together, all the players together, it just fell into place perfectly. I mean, it was life changing. It was amazing.
What was that experience like for you getting to coach the goalkeepers at Lynchburg?
It was my first time where I had just a core small group that I worked with, and you had to deal with, I'm training 2 or 3 players a day, and I'm dedicating all my time to them while full scrimmages and stuff are going on. I'm still dedicating my time to the 2 or 3. Like if I saw something else, I would approach the head coach and let him handle it. But I was only focused on giving my time to the keepers. But it allowed me to build a good relationship with them and get their take on things and for us to try things and be creative. And honestly, looking back now, it helped propel me to run my private training business because I used to record the goalkeepers with actually like just like an old camera, not a phone or nothing, and I would record them with that, and then we'd go in and we'd watch it and evaluate. And we actually the starting goalkeeper, we added like 7-8 yards on her goal kick just by doing stuff like that. And so just investing in the individuals and giving them all my time as opposed to being a head coach, you got to worry about 20 plus people. As a goalkeeper coach, you got to pay attention to them, but you're really only focused on the few people that you have to deal with.
Of course, what was that experience like going to Andrew College and becoming the assistant men's soccer coach there?
Yeah, so that was my first taste of coaching men. Uh, Obviously, Lynchburg was my first taste of coaching women at that age, and this was my first taste of coaching men at that age. And we were very internationally heavy. We had players from multiple places in England. We had players from Sweden, Australia, the British Virgin Islands. We had multiple guys that went on to play professionally from that team, and we had multiple guys that went on to represent their country from that team. So that was a nice atmosphere to be around. It was definitely the culture and the scene in that area was very different compared to where I'd come from. It was a lot smaller town, but so I really wanted to invest my time into the players. That was literally what I would do for fun most of the time, was just like invest in the players and give them any extra trainings or weight room workouts or anything like that. But that was a good experience because that was my first taste in coaching junior college and coaching men in college. So that kind of helped propel me on to the future.
What was that experience like for you getting to build a own program and creating the Wilmington FC?
So Wilmington FC was something that I actually had taken from an idea that I'd built for a couple years and wanted to try to start my own semi-pro team because the professional team that was here in town had folded, and they brought a PDL team in, and they only did that for 1 year. So all of the Division One players at UNCW and all of my players at Cape Fear, as well as any other guys that were moving to the area, didn't have access to the next level of play after college. And it was very, very trying. It took up a lot of my time. I lost a lot of money in it, but I can look back and know that I started that, I founded that. It was an enjoyable experience, and I definitely opened up a door of opportunity for players to continue to play on after college. And just knowing that I was able to reach my accomplishment of trying to create a semi-pro team, even though we were on the lower end, we were equivalent to like fifth tier in the United States soccer uh, pyramid, but it was very hard and trying to find advertisements, field space, stuff like that. But I was able to coach it for a little while. I had to drop it coaching when the college season started, but I was able to coach. I even subbed in for a little bit. I think I played about 19 minutes total in the season, but was able to put an assist on the board. But it was just nice to be able to kind of get that started and watch it grow, even though it was difficult in the time frame.
Of course, as you talked about that, what was that experience like for you growing the program from the ground up for Wilmington FC?
Very difficult. Very, very difficult. I knew that it would be difficult. The biggest aspect of it was I was trying to build it right when businesses were starting to open back up. And if I had waited maybe another year, maybe we would have been a little more sound with finding advertisements and field space and the like. But finding the players was no problem at all. That was easy because I have the contacts. So finding players, finding some solid players that were willing to commit was not a problem. And running, coaching, that kind of stuff, not a problem. Like coaching the team, running practices, finding players, that stuff was no issue. It was the logistics that was difficult and constantly scrambling, trying to find money to pay referees, to pay for field space. That was the kind of stuff that was very difficult when I was trying to get it off the ground. And I had a little bit of support from some of the players, but overall, I mean, 99% of it I was trying to do on my own, and it proved to be more difficult than I had expected. But it's nice to know back. I can look back and know that my goal was to own a semi-professional team, and I did.
During that time, what was that like balancing owning the Wilmington FCs and also becoming the head coach for Cape Fear?
Yeah, so I became the head coach on the men's side at Cape Fear on June 1st, 2016. And I didn't start looking to form Wilmington FC until 2020. Cape Fear is a typically 60 to 80 hour work week in the fall. And in the spring, it cuts down anywhere from 10 to 20 hours. Some weeks even less, depending on what time of year you're talking about. And so for Wilmington FC, that didn't really kick in until late spring. So there actually wasn't any overlap as I was building the program. But when August rolled around and my time had to be taken back up by the college team, that's when I had to step away from the coaching side for Wilmington FC and just be overseeing logistics and talking on the phone with the players and seeing what was going on and talking to the coach just to see how things were progressing.
What was that feeling like for you coming to Cape Fear Community College and becoming the head women's soccer coach?
So I started as the head men's coach in 2016, and I didn't know anything about Wilmington. I tried to do as much research as I could before I came for the interview and just become as familiar with the area. But I'm just doing YouTube and Google searches to try and learn about this area that I'm about to go into and have an interview. And I did as much research as I could. And I was offered the position on the spot, and I decided to accept it. And it's been great for me. I had only planned to be here for 1 to 3 years and move back over to coaching women because once again I was the men's coach, and I got offered the head women's position for the second time here at the school, and I decided to accept it. And I've now been doing that. I'm now in my third spring and just completed my second season as the head women's coach because I accepted it 2 Januaries ago. And so it's been great. I love Cape Fear. I love what we have going on. We're constantly trying to better ourselves. And in turn, like we're seeing the results across the board through all of our sports as the program continues to grow.
How is that feeling like for you getting to step onto that soccer field for the first time for Cape Fear?
Yeah, so I remember, and I actually have a little notebook my kids were looking at the other day. It's every game that I coached as the men's coach, and so they were able to go back and look and see every single game. And I just remember because for me, my mom was sick at the time, and I was striving towards pursuing this goal of being a head coach like I had wanted to do. And I actually end up coaching a game on the road, and just we ended up winning my first game as the head coach at Cape Fear. And I just remember it was so surreal knowing that like that's the first real game that we're stepping into, and we grabbed a win. It wasn't a great season my first year because I didn't have time to recruit. I was brought in so late. But just I specifically remember that we were at USC Lancaster and we were able to pull away a win, essentially with a makeshift team that was designed in the summer. I didn't really obtain any players from the previous coach.
Of course, on the women's side, what was that feeling like the first time you stepped onto that field for the women's side?
Yeah, so and the dynamics between coaching men and coaching women is definitely different. It takes a different personality. Uh, I feel that I can be a lot more laid back with the girls. With the guys, you have to be a little bit more aggressive towards them. With the girls, I try and build a very like positive culture, and instead of like yelling and a lot of times it helps to bring them over and just like talk to them, tell them what you want, tell them what they did. And my players give me great feedback too. We had our player meetings at this past season, but yeah, coaching on the women's side, we've had great results. We've only dropped one regular season game in my first 2 years as the head women's coach, and then haven't had great results at the national tournament, but have been able to get there both years. So stepping on the field for the women's coach, I wasn't nervous at all. I feel like at that point, I'd been doing this for years. It was nice to be back on the women's side of the game. I'm a big fan of the women's side of the game. And so then it was just trying to build a culture and a system that they could understand. I'm not a systematic coach, so I just try to build a system that works best for the players. And then if I need to tweak it, then I'll tweak it.
Can you talk about, of course, the culture that you built for the women's soccer program at Cape Fear?
Yeah, so when I'm talking to recruits, we make it very clear and we don't try and really sell anything. I try and be very upfront. Our culture is definitely built around like long-term success. Long-term success of the program and long-term success of the individual. And so for me, it's big on trying to have that nice work-life balance, not only for myself, but for my players. So when the season ended in November, I only saw them one day since then. Like some of them, I just saw them all the other night at a basketball game, but I've only seen them once as individuals where we had our player meetings and that's it. I let them go when the season's over, and then we don't come back together normally until February. But with the way the spring break fell this year, we're actually not going to meet up until March. Uh, but I'm very big. I want them to have like, and what I mean with that work-life balance is I want them to get jobs. I want them to get internships. I want them to get experience in the workforce. It's not just about soccer, soccer, soccer. I'm not trying to cram soccer, down your throat. I want you to enjoy soccer. Come here, be able to play, get good grades, and then be able to get an internship or a job to help pay for your bills or to get you work experience. And I'm very, very big on that. That way, should they choose to want to go to somewhere else, which will most likely cost more, they'll have money saved up. Or should they choose not to go somewhere else, then they'll have experience in the workforce. And so I'm very big on trying to find a nice balance, and I'm very big on positivity. I don't like to yell at the players. I don't like to punish the players. If I'm punishing you, I'm probably upset that I'm having to waste practice time to punish. And I don't like yelling at the players either. I like to like this is what we're doing. This is why we're doing it. Let's go. And the players that catch on fastest to that are the ones that are likely going to play because they comprehend like what we're trying to do. So I'm all about like positive atmosphere, positive with each other, try and stay on board with each other as best as we can, and then a nice work-life balance. And I've noticed that with the women, allowing them to just kind of go when the season ends and work and do whatever they want and then come back in the spring has definitely rewarded us because I mean, like I said, we've only dropped one regular season game in the 2 seasons that I've been here. And so that's kind of the big thing that we're aiming for is just positivity and work-life balance.
What does a typical game day look like for you as a head coach versus for your players?
Well, if we're talking on the road, it depends on what time we're leaving. We'll leave as early as like 7:15 a.m. And for me, that is getting everything packed up and in my truck the night before. Literally everything will be packed up and in my truck the night before, or it'll be sitting by the front door and I'll grab it on the way out early in the morning. And then I have to stop at Chick-fil-A and get catering. And so I'm doing this and that, and making sure things get sorted. Meanwhile, my phone's typically getting blown up by multiple players for whatever reason. And so I'm trying to make sure that they're okay and they're where they need to be. And then just getting on the bus, and the players, they have a 15-minute rule, so they have to get there 15 minutes before the bus is supposed to leave. And if we're out of state, I feed them on the way and I feed them on the way back. If we're in state, the food won't have time to digest, so I do not feed them on the way. And then we'll ride. We'll normally take one stop on the way to wherever we're going, maybe two, depending on how far it is. Get off, play. That's kind of where it differs because they all kind of like corral to one area in the pregame. I'm running here and there and getting things set up and getting the camera set up and doing anything I need to. And if I have an assistant with me, that's great. But on our level, assistants are volunteers typically, and so they can't always be on the road with me. Typically, they are not, and so it's all on me when we're on the road to get everything set up, moving, anything that's needed here or there. And then after the game, everybody helps clean it up, and we take it back to the bus. I'll hopefully will have already ordered catering if I had time to remember to do so, and we'll stop and grab whatever I ordered from and hit the road and come back. Home games are a little bit different. I could have a home game today and be chilling talking to you because for me it's really really slow on home games. Unlike away games where it's like go here, go there, and then get on the bus. And normally I just have some audio book in my ears while we're on the bus, but home games are super chill because I don't set up the field. I don't break down the field. If I'm there and I can help, I'll definitely do so. But we have people on our staff that do that. And for the players, they're at school throughout the day. And so they're in class or at work. I've had players that go to work at 5 a.m. and then go to class at 8 or 9. They're in class all day, and then they show up to the field. And they've been working and in class since 5 a.m. And now they're rolling onto the field ready to play a game. To where me, on the other hand, I, took the kids to school like I did this morning, came back, just chilling. I might have some errands to do here. I might have to go to the office, but it's all very brief stuff. I try and keep my game days free. So home days for me are a lot more lax compared to away games. Away games, it's a lot of hustle and bustle.
Who are some of the teams in your conference that you compete against each week?
So Wake Tech, which is in Raleigh, North Carolina, they're kind of like our rivals, I guess you could say, in the soccer scene. Lewisburg College, they are just outside of Raleigh. And we had like a second rival, I would say it would probably be them. Richard Bland, which is up near Chesterfield, Virginia. Those are our main ones that have been consistent across the board. The conference has tweaked and changed a little bit over the years, but those have been some schools that have stayed consistent. Wake Tech and Raleigh. We've had some other schools in North Carolina pop up, disappear. We also used to be in conference with the South Carolina community colleges and all the main central to southwest community colleges in Virginia, but right now it's just North Carolina and part of Virginia.
Of course, what is that home game atmosphere like when teams like Wake Tech comes to your home facility?
I'm sorry, I forgot Patrick Henry. They didn't have a women's team this past season. That's why. So yeah, when when those games come in, like those are the games that matter. We could play somebody that's nationally ranked, but in the end, that game doesn't make a true impact on do we make it to the national tournament. You have to win your conference and then win your district. So when Wake Tech, Lewisburg, or Richard Bland, those were the three that we had to compete with. Or in prior years, we've had Patrick Henry and Lenore. When those teams come in, like you have to win. You cannot drop a game against them, especially on your home turf. And so there you can see like there's a next level of like locked in, gotta win it type stuff. So we've only dropped one of those, like I said, in the past two years, so that's not too bad. But hopefully we can continue to have that thought process. We definitely, while also focusing on positivity and work-life balance, like it's a championship mentality. Like I make it clear to any recruit that comes in, like you come in here, you're expected to win. Like we have a winners, we have a winners atmosphere. We try and keep that championship mentality. And now instead of just moving on and being nationally ranked, we want to compete on a national level.
Of course, what is that atmosphere like when going to teams like Wake Tech away?
I will say that, especially on the women's side, and I didn't really see it on the men's side either. It's not like a hostile or it's not that kind of a vibe at all. It's not like we have to worry about fans or anything like that. It's definitely like, I guess the best way I could phrase it is like competitive, college competitive. Like that this is the rival, but like the fan and the atmosphere, any kind of like atmosphere around it at home or away is like more like family oriented. So it kind of strikes me. It kind of gives off like very 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 mini MLS vibes. I guess that's like an easy way to like compare it. It's kind of like that.
What does that recruitment process look like for those prospective student athletes? And as a head coach, what do you look at in those prospective student athletes?
Yeah, so personality, first off. If I have a talk with your club coach or your college coach and they're like, honestly, probably wouldn't go with her, like I wouldn't recommend it. And then I'm immediately just gonna scratch you off. Like it doesn't matter how good you are, I would just scratch you off the list. But let's say that I have a call, someone random, I find someone random online because I do a lot of online recruiting, or someone comes to my ID clinic, which is huge for us with the recruiting process because we're not a real big budget uh, program in regards to how much we can dedicate to recruiting. So I have to be creative in how I recruit. So my ID clinic is very big in how I pull players, but I like to have a chat with the players and their parents. And if I like what I see in person at the ID clinic or from what I see online, and then I'll also have a chat with their club coach and high school coach if I can get both. Honestly, while I know the club teams are typically better, I like to talk to the high school coaches more because they see the players more on a day in, day out basis. They're also more likely to know if there's any issues in the school system. So actually, the high school coaches normally can give you better intel on who they are as a person than a club coach. And so I really like to get perspective from the high school coach. But if they've been with a club coach for a while, they definitely can typically give me good perspective as well. But we're allowed 1 day, so the official visit day, they can come out on 1 day and train with the team, and after their junior year, and I really try and take advantage of that because I can bring one player out to train with the team. I'm not going to tweak practice like whatever we were working on the day. We're still going to work on. You've got to come in and adapt to us as if you were on the team. And so I'll introduce the recruit to the players, and I normally give the players like, "Hey, heads up, we've got somebody coming out tomorrow, and or two people coming out tomorrow, just so y'all are aware." And I definitely do in the spring a lot. I've already had requests to come train with us in the spring by some recruits because we're inactive right now, and I'm not having an ID clinic for a while. So any kind of recruiting right now is just me watching highlight film and stuff like that. But that's kind of the process. If they come into the ID clinic and I like what I hear from them, from their coaches, then we'll go ahead and make them an offer. And obviously, I'm going to look into the grades. I'm going to talk about the personality with the coaches. A lot of times, these kids, they don't know that I'm doing this stuff. Like, I will find the coach's contact and talk to them often before I ever even meet the kid in person. But if they come to the ID clinic, then they fill out a form that gives me those coaches' contact. But if I find the player online, I'll tweak I'll pick the coach's brain and see what do they think about this player. And if they come out and they perform well with us on their official visitation day, then I'll give them an offer right then and there.
As a head coach, what is that like seeing those freshmen put on that jersey for the first time for Cape Fear?
It's enjoyable seeing how like this is almost like your official step into being part of like the family and the culture that we built. I'm very big on every player playing. I don't I don't bring anybody in to Cape Fear with the intention of sitting them on the bench. So if you were to come here, you will play your freshman year. That doesn't mean you're going to play every game, but by the end of the season, if you add all the minutes up together that you've played, it's going to be pretty significant. And so some players they might have to wait till the second or third game, but I will say that our second leading scorer on the team this season, she didn't crack the starting lineup until I believe we're about 4 or 5 games into the season. And so she just continued to buy her time and get whatever minutes that she could get. She worked her way in and kind of locked that in. But getting them to come in and as a freshman, you can see like their excitement. They're always nervous, but their level of excitement and it makes me happy to see because if they're nervous and they're excited, that means they really want it. Like they're ready and they're happy to be there. So it's always nice to see.
What is it like as a head coach seeing your sophomores put that jersey on for the last time and then going into college putting on their other jersey?
Yeah, so that was the national tournament this year, where it was all said and done, and you can just see while they were upset with the final result, we played a great game, but just I think had dead legs from playing the day before and jet lag, but the level of pride with those players as they wore that jersey and they played for that last time, and the level of camaraderie made me very happy to see because they weren't happy that the season was over, but they weren't sad that the season was over. They were sad that they were never going to play together again.
What are some of your future plans for Cape Fear moving forward?
Yeah, so we always ask the players to critique us too. And we did that in our player meetings with my assistant and I. So we're gonna make some tweaks, and then we're trying to do some additional team bonding stuff. And we do community outreach. I'm good friends with the uh, former U.S. Women's National Team player that runs our community outreach program here with the soccer, and so we'll go and we'll volunteer some of our time there with her. We're always trying to be creative and take into account any type of team bonding activities that the players really liked this past year. We'll look to do them more, if not at least the same amount next year. And so they enjoyed going. Obviously, they enjoy going to the beach, right? Because that's like 10 minutes away from where I'm currently sitting. But beach practices, going for a run at the beach, and the additional team bonding stuff that we did. That's definitely things that we're going to be looking to do in the future, and just seeing what do the players like and what can we continue to do and be positive moving forward. But definitely taking into account the tweaks to, like, the players requested a tweak to the warm up. And so we're gonna look to do stuff like that. We're gonna look to definitely take into account their feelings and their thoughts on things, and we'll start incorporating that in the spring. But then also team bonding and trying to keep it to where we're keeping a positive atmosphere. But I'm not going to require more of the players, like I said, because I'm very big on them having time to have a social life, to have a job. So I'm not going to make them show up to more stuff than what I already do.
Of course, what advice would you give those incoming freshmen entering their first year of college soccer?
Yeah, so come in shape for sure. The freshmen that come in shape on a sophomore level are even better, are always going to be able to, maintain the day in, day out rigors, because I think there's always a misconception of players playing 2, 3 games over a weekend for club soccer, thinking that that can correlate in the club. And I'm just like, that's nowhere near the same. One game of college will beat you up way more than 3 games of club over a weekend. And so if they can come in fit, that will decrease the likelihood of injuries. They'll be able to deal with the 2-a-days that we throw at them in the preseason. And if they're coming in fit and they've worked on their technical game and they're just all around ready to go, which I find is hit and miss. Sophomores always show up ready. Freshmen, it's hit and miss. And you try and explain it, we give them the workout packet, and I'm easily accessible when if they have any questions on things that they want to work on. But it's definitely hit and miss on their ability to understand of how to step into that level. So for freshmen, we try and be as honest with them as we can. We don't, like I said, we don't sugarcoat anything. We're not brutal or cruel about anything either. But I try and be as upfront, like, hey, like, you need to make sure that you're coming in and you're hitting around like this. We only do like the beat test. We only do that's the only fitness test we do. And like if you're not hitting like around this area, you're probably not fit enough. And also just working like maintaining, eating right, stuff like that. And we'll go over all of that with them in the summer. But I still find that freshmen sometimes they have a hard time adapting to the fitness, to the mental strain that it can be starting out the gate, especially when classes start and you got classes, games, and practices, and trying to juggle a social life and maybe a job. It can be a lot, but it's a lot less with the schedule that I have, the way that I designed, because we don't have mandatory study halls, we don't have mandatory weightlifting. I monitor their grades. I can sit right here and on the work iPad, I can pull their grades up and see where they stand, and then I just send them a little message on WhatsApp, which is how we communicate.
What advice would you give those sophomores that are looking to go into playing on a Division 1 level or a Division 2 level or even going semi-pro?
Yeah, so we talk about that with every individual on what they want. Honestly, most of our players do not want to go play on because they look at the location, they look at the cost, they look at the time, the amount of freedom that they have while playing here compared to going elsewhere. But I definitely have D1 schools, D2 schools, obviously D3 and NAI too, coming after our current players. And I know that probably 4 or 5 of our current sophomores will go on to play somewhere. If they're looking to go on that level, they know the level of fitness that's required, but they also know that they need to be nice and like tuned up for whenever those coaches want them to come on a visit. Because some divisions you can train with a team, and some you can train with a team when the coach is not there, where it's captain led. So we're really big on just like stick to the plan of what we taught you, use everything that we've taught you within your 2 years here, or for a transfer 1 year here. Utilize all of that information. Let me know if you need anything. And then I'm definitely, I help through the process. I won't do the work for them, but I might introduce them to someone, or I would help them, you know, if they got a phone call, these are the questions that you might get asked. You can expect to get asked these questions. If they're about to send out an email, a lot of times they'll send me the email and I'll be like, you need to reword it like this, and I send it back just so that it maybe a little grammatical correction or something to make it sound a little bit more professional. And I'm never making major tweaks to anything they do, because I teach that stuff as we go along so that it's professional looking. And that stuff can carry over into the workforce too. So it's just sticking to the game plan of what we taught you, and then utilizing that stuff to help you move on to that level. and I'm very straight up with the players. Now I know that there's a lot of overlap between D1, D2, and D3. Like there's a lot of overlap. You could throw JUCO and NAI into there, and there's a big difference between the top end D1 and the bottom end D1. And then there's a whole lot where the rest of the divisions can fall inside of the Division 1 level. And so I definitely sit down with the players and I find out before we talk about division, we talk about what do they need. So we don't even look at division first. It's like, what do you need? What do you want to do as a dream job? If money was irrelevant, what would you be doing? And so before we talk about D1 or D2, those are the types of conversations that we have. Because for some players, it makes way more sense to go D3 or NAI.
Of course, what advice would you give those players looking to get into college coaching after their playing career?
Be willing to work for free. Be willing to work for free. Be willing to volunteer your time. And that doesn't mean that a coach is going to take a gamble on you to bring you into their staff because they have a culture. I've had great assistants and I've had not so good assistants. And, I will say that the young lady that I have right now as my assistant is a former player and she is amazing. And we work together really, really well. And so it's being open-minded, knowing that you are the assistant. So definitely give your take, but be much more willing to listen. I did a lot of listening as an assistant coach so that I could learn. And as my assistants, I want them to speak up against me if they disagree with something. And I want them to give me their thoughts. And I'm also going to I always say, like, I'm going to throw you into the fire right out the gate. I make them run a session. They normally have to run like the first or second practice. So these players might not know who they are, but they're going to be running practice right away. And we'll discuss the practice and we'll discuss the plans. And then I'll step back. And if I see any things like, you should be standing here instead of there, you're not projecting your voice because of where you're standing, stuff like that. Or, you see we need to tweak it right here or open it up, make it bigger, make it smaller, things like that. But I'll be leaving it to them to execute that. I just tell them what I see and then I step back. And I'm like, oh, maybe if you don't see this looking any better in about 5 minutes or less, I would suggest that you change it depending on what the drill is. Obviously, you don't want to wait 5 minutes for a small drill, but if it's a scrimmage or something, give them a little bit to get it sorted. But being an assistant, be willing to work for free and be willing to dedicate your time and be willing to learn. If you do those things and you're under the right coach that wants to help you as an assistant, then it definitely can help project you on into the coaching ranks. I know that's definitely what happened for me, especially like my time at Lynchburg's. Like I can't put a price on it.
What advice would you give those incoming head coaches looking to build their own program and build their own legacy?
Yeah, try and build a good staff around you first. And if you can get any advice from the previous coaches, so for me, the previous men's coach before me was the assistant athletic director, and he was great at helping me get into being comfortable with being the head men's coach because he knew I'd have been an assistant, but I'm not familiar with the area. I don't know the schools around here. I don't know the clubs around here. And so if you can do that, it definitely will help you out. But trying to game plan everything you can before. At this point in my career, it's rare that I come across something that is unexpected. But definitely in my earlier years, I would get caught off guard. So not having an emotional reaction or anything like that, just be like, okay, all right, now that happened, so we got to do this. And it could be everything from a horrible loss to an unexpected amazing win to one of your players gets in trouble to, we had a hurricane come through and I had players who lost their homes. I had players, when COVID came through, players' parents got laid off. And so you always have to be adaptable to every situation. And that applies to games too, because unlike in other sports, we can't call timeouts. And timeouts don't, I can't be like 20 minutes of the game. Hey, ref, timeout. No. And so you always have to be able to adapt to every situation. And that comes to on the field and off the field stuff.
That's great advice. Where can my listeners find you at on social media along with the Cape Fear women's soccer program at?
Yeah, so they can find me on TikTok. I'm very active on TikTok. I don't know how many followers I have. It's somewhere around like 20,000 at the current moment. And that's under Ponton Soccer Academy, which is my last name, Ponton Soccer Academy. And I also have my training business on Facebook and Instagram. And then for our college team, You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, or well, X, and that's at Cape Fear WSOC, WSOC. So Cape, CAPE, Fear, FEAR, WSOC. And you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and X under that.
Thank you again, Coach Ponton, for your interview, and best of luck in your future as the head women's soccer coach at Cape Fear.
Thank you.
You can find Brandon Sports Talk on Instagram at Brandon Sports Talk, Twitter at Talk_Brandon, and you can find me on YouTube at Brandon Sports Talk. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you again, Coach, for your interview, and best of luck in your future.
You're welcome.
You've been watching Brandon Sports Talk. Please feel free to like, share, and subscribe to Brandon Sports Talk on social media and on YouTube.